I'm Justine. We're here at the browser-based AIE podcast booth. I'm so lucky to be joined by Alex from Upside. How are you doing today, Alex?
I'm doing well. This conference is crazy. There's a robot walking around right behind your head. You haven't seen it yet.
There's the robot. There's like these like guys with green like painted faces walking
hmm
around. It's a pretty like futuristic, kind of weird like AGI feel going on this week.
I think walking around the booth, one of the things that has hit me most is these products are not actually for humans anymore. They're mostly marketing to the agents the humans are using.
Yeah.
So, hopefully the conference will still need a human attendees next year.
It's funny though, despite that, every human who I've talked to in the podcast this week, like the common thesis that we come down to and like distill at the end of the conversation is always like the human must be in the loop. The humans have to have some sort of agency. I think that I don't know. Do you think that people are like a little bit scared that they're losing control, or like what's the pulse
I
that
think
you
they're
get?
probably scared about losing relevance, but there's a lot of different ways that matters between a human and an agent. And I think every 6 months or so, the agents basically get a new college degree. So it goes from high school agents to valedictorian MBA agents in the last 18 months. And I expect that will continue. We'll have the senior software engineer agents in about another year, but the human piece will still be relevant.
For sure. Speaking of these agents and how we're navigating this new realm of the agent experience, taking over human workflows, you're building something super, super cool. At Upside, you're working on tackling very specific field of go-to-market. I'm a go-to-market engineer myself here at BrowserBase, so I'm really excited for this conversation. Can you tell me a bit more about what you're building and what motivated this?
I think what we've seen is that the go-to-market engineer is basically the hero of the new age, because it's come a long way since the original Clay definition of basically automation of outbound. Now the go-to-market engineer is the person who can build things. They know how to take messy, ambiguous situations and craft an entire workflow that the rest of the team can use around it. So they're basically the builders, and they can fix things. So at Upside, what we've been building is the data layer that lets go-to-market engineers do stuff, because what we've found is that in almost every case, whether you're doing data analyses or building internal tools or running agentic workflows, what you actually need is some kind of fuel for those. And if you're trying to connect your agents or your data analyses or your internal tools that you're building directly to something like Salesforce, it's kind of like putting crude oil directly into a car tank. It just doesn't work. You need to refine it a bit first. And what we've built is the refinery that turns all those raw data sources into something that's really easy for you or your agents to build stuff.
Very cool. I mean, yeah, there's so much frustration that goes behind like the GTM loop. Even I find myself like, plugging in leads into Clay and then personally exporting that and putting that out, into HubSpot and then sending and then checking like manually and all these dashboards. Like I think there's more of a need for like a unified agent experience, which is then from your intelligence layer then being navigated into all these different integrations.
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting things is for the last 30 years or so, if you wanted a general purpose business tool, you're basically going to reach for a spreadsheet or a set of PowerPoint slides. And for the first time ever, there's kind of an alternative to that, which is Claude or Codex or Cursor or whichever general purpose harness you're using. But essentially, you no longer have to go to a spreadsheet by default. And if you're going to be using something like Claude as your purpose-built business tool for anything, then that can kind of reduce the need for a lot of these purpose-built tools. Like even Clay eventually, I imagine we've seen already companies that lean into, I'll just do that through Claude. I don't need Clay anymore. And you're going to find that this is the case for a lot of things that used to be necessary just because there wasn't an easy way to build it yourself.
Definitely Claude Code. I mean, even for myself, has changed like everything about my job, right? It's like, I don't even know the last time I've like manually opened a CSV file and like scrolled through like a column to filter myself or like really like try to, distill like an email list or like scrape emails online. Like all these things Claude Code can do now, which makes me think about too, like how is my job changing? Like what are the human skills and like qualities I have that like this Claude Code doesn't have, which makes me more hireable. I saw on your LinkedIn, someone was posting about you talking about like the new identity of a GTM engineer.
Yeah.
Like, I think that like every day that almost changes. Like, what do you think right now are like the main things that a GTME should know?
I've probably spent 30% of my time just staying up to date with all the new stuff. I kind of sometimes think, what was it like to have a job where you could just do the same thing every day for a while and it wasn't a case of, wait, what new thing have I missed? that if I don't learn it this week, I'm suddenly becoming out of date. But I think for staying relevant, one of the best ways to approach it is, how would I think about working with a team of humans? Because if you're growing a team, you're going to be hiring new people, and they're going to be experts in each area where you hire them to work. And over time, you as the manager of this team will not be doing the work hands-on as much because you've hired people who are going to be better at it. And agents kind of fit the same mold. You're hiring an agent that is going to be better than you at a specific part of the work that you are responsible for. And as we get Fable 5 or Fable 7 or whatever version of the model is available 18 months from now, it will be better at some things that in the past the human was better at. But as the person still responsible for pointing it in the right direction, that part of the responsibility hasn't changed.
And you talk about this like split between like the human brain and like kind of this GTM like agent brain. Is the kind of framing here that like obviously our human brain and our like cooperation and like interpersonal skills and kind of taste almost in a way still stays in our brain? Are you trying to say that like the GTM engine that you're building is almost like a second brain for tasks, or should it actually have that judgment instilled in it to go and do our things for us?
I think one of the big limitations of agents right now is the way most people use them. You're essentially hiring a brand new intern every time. So they are really smart and they have a lot of things that they've learned in school, and they have not been through onboarding for your company yet. So if you are hiring a new intern for every single task, then you spend a lot of time educating them on what it means to work for your business. And that doesn't have to be the case. You can document things that make it easier to onboard, and eventually you can give them persistent memory that means they don't need to be onboarded, and then you'll see big improvements just like you would from hiring a more experienced human. But that doesn't fundamentally change this problem of something has to be doing the guidance. So somebody has to be responsible for doing that documentation and keeping it up to date and knowing what is appropriate to use for an agent who works in your company. So a lot of what we think about with a go-to-market brain is both the access to the data that allows the agent to do tasks, but also the context framing that you give to an agent so that it is not starting from scratch every time that you ask it to do something.
Yeah, because go-to-market essentially is still like quite a human task in a way. Like I think a lot of these integrations and different tools that you're using and like certain technical things like could very easily be replaceable. But you're right, like these decisions and guidance is something that like ultimately you're trying to sell your product to another human, or you're trying to like sell it to a human or another agent that's interacting on behalf of software. So
I mean, in some ways, maybe we eventually become context gardeners, basically, because if you just ask Claude to go give something a try, it'll do some pretty ridiculous things. Because it has no sense of, I was going to say shame, but maybe it doesn't get stage fright. It will just give it a go. And humans tend to think, oh, that sounds hard. I think I'll go research a bit first, which is not the case for an agent. So you have to give it a little bit of self-awareness.
Ooh, self-awareness. Self-awareness is very important both in humans and in agents. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about how you bake that self-awareness into the harness that you're building for this intelligence layer?
I think there's basically a bad and a better and a best here. So bad is obviously trust the agent to figure it out, because it will figure it out, but it might not figure out what you want it to figure out. A better is have some really good documentation. So a very common thing I'll do is just write something I consider to be canonical and then reference it every time I have a relevant task. So that could be a document in Notion. It could just be something you keep in notes, but it's the place where I've written what I care about so that I start over, not from scratch. And a lot of the memory that you get in Claude, for example, is kind of this in a trench coat. It's just something that you've documented that Claude has access to every single time. But we've seen a lot of benefits recently is instead of static documentation, you actually give the agent access to like a librarian coworker. So it is another agent that is trained on your business and is running behind the scenes. So everyone in the company who wants to take a task just consults the librarian first. And we found that that's actually really useful because then everyone on the team is benefiting. You're not just what you stored in Claude, it's the thing that the team has knowledge. And you get this kind of knowledge colossus that scales over time and makes everyone better.
Yeah, it's not only like a librarian who's there who can translate all these books for you, but the librarian is like simultaneously onboarding library interns at the same time.
Yes.
It's maybe the way
Yeah.
to think
It's
about
recruiting.
it, right? It's recruiting, it's training, it's like teaching them how to navigate from place to place. Yeah. What do you think is one thing that like go-to-market teams are getting wrong right now when it comes to like this whole process of onboarding and integrating?
Something I think that most go-to-market teams are getting wrong right now is that they still treat these agents as chatbots, essentially, and they don't treat them as persistent coworkers. So a chatbot is this intelligent thing that lives within the confines of a message stream. A coworker is somebody who gets involved with your tasks and helps you run them. So if you're only thinking of in terms of I can give text and I can get text back and then I'm going to copy that text and go do something with it somewhere else, that is very different from I'm going to give directions of a task that I want achieved, and then my coworker is going to go work on it and report back to me. As soon as you can break it out of the box, it's like breaking someone out of jail, basically. As soon as you pull them out of jail, then the kinds of things you could do are a lot more creative because now they're working with you. They're not just giving you advice.
Very interesting. Yeah. Do you have any hot takes when it comes to go-to-market agents or hot take on AI in general? Anything interesting that you've seen at AIE?
Well, aside from all of these products being sold to agents instead of to humans, I think we used to hear a lot about hallucination a few years ago, and I don't hear that word come up as much anymore, but a lot of the themes behind the topics that seem to come up in the talks this week, they're still basically hallucination's older sibling. It's this problem of how do we make the agent trustworthy, and how do we make sure that when we ask an agent to do something, it's actually doing what we thought it was going to do and not what it invented along the way. So hallucination, I don't think has gone away. It's just a more sophisticated version now.
Of maybe hallucination is like probably like an all-encompassing word. It's probably just like a little bit delusional and doing what it thinks is the right thing, but is not, right?
Which is the same problem you'd have with a human.
Maybe agents are all just little baby humans.
Maybe they are just all baby humans and we're trying to educate them on what it means to be part of this world.
All our baby librarians for the go-to-market stack.
That's probably a good tweet. Like an image of a baby librarian.
Cue image of a baby librarian now. Well, if there's one piece of advice that you would give, to go-to-market teams who are listening to this podcast, who are thinking about how to introduce agents into their workflow, what's the advice that you would give?
Well, the selfish advice would be don't try to build all the data infrastructure yourself. But probably slightly more practical advice would be treat these agents the way you'd treat a human. Because I think a lot of the optimization that really cutting-edge engineering teams are working on is probably slightly less relevant in the go-to-market age, where you don't need to be super cutting edge on the way you instrument the harness for everything related to the propensity model yourself. You just need to use it. And a good model for how to think about working with an agent seems to be how would you work with a human doing the same task? And that helps you shortcut a lot of the really kind of obnoxious steps along the way.
Great advice. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Alex. I feel like I learned a lot about go-to-market and really just to think about how much like intelligence and baking in kind of the right human workflows into our agents really matters.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.